This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I am your host, Mark. And the first time I ever heard Vashti Bunyan was as the theme song for the Amazon Prime TV series Patriot a few years ago. But the song was so beautiful, I let it play through every episode. I did a little digging to find out more about the song and was surprised to learn it had originally been released in 1966. The more digging I did on Vashti and her music, the more fascinated I became. Why had I never heard this beautiful music? Why was there a 35-year gap between her first and second albums? Why was there a 9-year gap between her second and third albums? Then, out of the blue, I got an email. Would you like to do a podcast with Vashti Bunyan? What? Are you kidding me? This is proof of God. Of course I want to talk with Vashti Bunyan. She's written a memoir that answers all the questions I had and more. What's her connection with the Rolling Stones? Who are the amazing session musicians on her earliest work? And why the gap between albums? Where did she go? What did she do? It's a fascinating story that could only have happened in 60s and 70s UK, or maybe San Francisco. For example, there's the one about meeting Donovan and taking a horse and cart across the UK to live in his artist community. Or the one about getting performance advice from Devendra Banhart after not performing at all for about 40 years. And what happened to all of her instruments. Her book is a fun, easy read with wonderful stories about beautiful music. I highly recommend picking it up wherever you get books. Vashti recommends independent book dealers if possible. So follow her at Vashti Bunyan on Twitter and Instagram. Check out her music wherever you can. And follow us at Performance Annex on Twitter and Instagram. And you can support the show with coffee at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety or with merch at performanceanx.threadless.com. And I hope you enjoy this talk with Vashti Bunyan as much as I did on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Oh, great. Okay, well, I'll have a go. Okay. This is Vashti Bunyan, and I am talking to Mark Shea on the Performance Anxiety podcast, and I am talking to him about a book that I have written, a memoir about my childhood, my music, and 30 years that I had nothing to do with music at all, and then it all came back, and that's what the book is about. And I really thank Mark for speaking to me about it. It's been fun. So what time is it where you are?
It's 10 o'clock.
Oh, right.
I'm in Virginia.
Oh, in Virginia, right.
Yes.
Still quite early then. Still quite early after St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, for everybody in my house but me, apparently. Everybody's out. My wife and the 3 kids are all still sleeping.
Right.
Even the dogs.
Oh,
I don't know, but
now you're having to work. That's not fair.
Well, thank you again for doing this. This is wonderful. This podcast usually is a pretty deep dive into my guests' careers and how you got to being a carefree young child to writing your memoirs right now. So there's a lot in there. So I do appreciate the time you put aside to do this, and we'll kind of jump right in if that's all right with you.
Absolutely fine.
All right, yes. Perfect. So I was reading the book, and you've had quite an experience as a child. I mean, your parents were both creative in their own different ways. And you'd mentioned that your mom liked to perform before she got married, and yes. Your father, even though he was a dentist, did like to invent things.
He was, yeah. He thought of himself as an inventor, that's for sure.
So is that where you think a lot of the creativity came from? It was a little bit hidden in the family, but I mean, it was there.
It was there. And I think because my father was a very unusual kind of person, that he was creative in his way, as you said, and also a bit of a rebel and very anti-establishment, I would think. He'd probably think of himself like that. And I think I got a bit of that from him. That, he didn't go along with things as they were.
Yeah. I get, because I did read about the interesting collection of things that he had in his shed. The bones and the.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't even in a shed. And we lived in this big house, well, the sort of tall house in London.
Oh, okay. And
he had a dental surgery. And besides that, he had a laboratory. He called it his laboratory. It was just a room. But it was full of the most, skeletons and jars of things. Yes. He was unusual.
That's amazing. Between that and then moving from the older house or estate that you lived in into the post-war London, surrounded by bombed out buildings, between that and having a laboratory filled with bones, that
yes,
that must have had your imagination going wild.
It did. And because I was the youngest of the family, I was allowed free reign, and I had a great time, really. I was allowed so much freedom, whereas my older brother and sister, they had grown up much more traditionally. And I think by the time I came along after the war, nobody really had the energy to look out for me. So I was free to do whatever I wanted, really.
Wow.
It was
the benefits of being the third child, too, because the first two wore out your parents. I know I would say that with mine, but my three are so close together. They're about under a year apart each. So that's they all broke us at the same time.
Right.
So, when did music really start coming into your life and making an impact on you?
I think always from very young, although nobody in my family played an instrument. My father had a huge collection of classical records, and he played music all the time. I didn't know until after he died, actually, that he could play the organ. And I never saw him do that, but he played organ music all the time, and especially on Sundays. And he would pretend to be a conductor and conduct this imaginary orchestra from the top of the stairs. So there was always music in my life. And also there was the radio, which my mother always had on. So it was always there, although nobody around me played anything. And I really wanted to, but the only lessons I got were violin lessons, and I didn't like violin very much.
I wanted to ask you that because I also, in reading your memoirs, was kind of struck by, you said you had a piano in the house that ended up getting cut up because nobody wanted it. Yes, that was when I was about 5. My father was ill, and we had to move from the house that we had into post-war London. Right. And at that time, yes, there was a grand piano in the sitting room. Beautiful thing. And I had to watch it be cut up and chopped up because nobody wanted it. This was post-war London, and who was going to want a grand piano? So, yes, I remember it so well. I remember its legs being sawn off. Oh. The pain. That is, oh, gosh.
And the dog was given away because we couldn't get him into London. I don't know which was worse, really.
For a 5-year-old, I'm probably the dog, but still.
Yeah. They both stay in my head.
Oh, gosh. So the first instrument you started playing was the violin then?
Yeah. Yes. I didn't like it very much.
Oh, no. But you did bring it to school, though.
Yes, I was sent to boarding school when I was about 14 to try and right my ways, try and tame me down a little. And I did take my violin, but the teacher there had me play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star every week for the whole term. Oh. And so the next time I didn't take my violin, and when I got home after that term, my dad had flogged it to somebody coming to the door looking for old things. And so... Oh,
wow.
It was,
Every instrument in your life is getting destroyed or given away.
Yeah, that's right. I think I got used to that. Yes.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Before you skip over this ad, give me 1 minute. Like most podcasts, I pick sponsors carefully and I use the products that advertise here. Pure Spectrum CBD is a product that has been really beneficial for me. They have a wide variety of great products that can be used on a daily or as needed basis. I've been using the tincture every day, and it's been wonderful for easing anxiety. And I absolutely love the isolate. I use it instead of acetaminophen or ibuprofen, and it's worked so well for the relief of aches and pains. They also have soaks, lotions, salves, gummies, and more, plus an entire line for fitness recovery. They even have products for your pets. See everything they offer at purespectrumcbd.com. And if you have questions, they're there to help. They helped me when I had no idea where to start. After you fill your cart, use code PerformanceANX for 15% off your purchase. Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD. So you're in your early teens, and is that when you saw your first concert? Because I know you had a kind of a more interesting experience with your first concert than most people get, because you actually got to meet the artists.
Yes, I did, because my parents had friends who were, they used to put on shows at the Blackpool Opera House every summer. And that was actually the first way that pop musicians could get to do live stuff, was to get a summer season in one of these big theatres by the sea. And these friends of my parents, they had Cliff Richard do a show. Well, he was headlining a show. Wow. At the Blackpool Opera House. And at that time, I think I was 15, 16, and he was the one that I saw most of on, British TV. There wasn't an awful lot of pop music representation, but the people like him, I totally worshipped. And of course, he became the most incredibly uncool person over the next years. But at that time, oh dear. And my daughter, when I was starting to do all of this and tell people about myself, she said, "You must not tell anybody that you ever liked Cliff Richard."
Oh, wow. It lingers on.
So I did, and there's his picture in my book.
Oh, man. See, you don't listen to anybody ever. I love it. How old were you when you started picking up the guitar? And how did you come across the guitar? Everybody's giving away your instruments and cutting them up and stuff.
Well, I was lucky in that I went to an art school after leaving school. I think nobody really knew what to do with me, and so she can draw, send her off to art school. So and I shared a bedsit with a girl called Jenny Lewis, who had a guitar, and we started writing songs together. And actually, having learned the violin, it did help me to learn the guitar very quickly, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
You had some interesting friends while that was at Ruskin School of Drawing, right?
Yes, the Ruskin School of Drawing and Fine Art, it was called, and it was very, very old school, old-fashioned.
So you knew some interesting people there, because besides your roommate, you also were hanging out with Terry Jones and Michael Palin at that time, which is amazing.
Well, it was a long time before Monty Python days, but they were so funny. Yeah. And they used to do little reviews in Oxford at little theatres, and just watching them coming up with the ideas for the sketches, it was the most agonizingly funny. And I'll never forget that time before they were famous, and when they were just so clever.
That is incredible. Robert Hewson was also there, and Michael Palin credits him for pushing him into performing. Who pushed you into performing? Was it something you wanted to do on your own? And when did you start performing? Was it around that time or before?
Yeah, well, I guess with Jenny Lewis and another friend, Angie Strange, we formed a group called The Three of Us. And we did perform in Oxford and also in various places, and we were all at the art school. But I got thrown out after 2 years.
I'm sensing a pattern.
Thank you. Yeah, I got thrown out, and so that was the end of our trio. They stayed, and they became an act themselves. But then I went off on my own and tried to be a wandering minstrel.
Yeah. Was the three of us the first time you really performed out in public?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was good fun. And we played Everly Brothers and Buddy Holly and a couple of songs that we'd written. And we had very good harmonies. We were great.
Oh, man. I would love to hear that stuff. Oh. And around that time is when you ended up going to New York.
Yes, I went to New York because my sister lived there and she had 3 little kids and I was supposed to be looking after them. I don't think I made a very good job of that. But, while I was there, I discovered the album, the Bob Dylan album, the Freewheeling Bob Dylan album, in a shop window. And from then on, I was just, it opened my mind to a completely different way of thinking and different way of looking at the world. And I realized how sheltered I'd been and how ignorant in lots of ways as I was.
Okay.
Socially ignorant, politically ignorant. And that album actually did fill up, well, I've said it before, it filled some of the air in my head.
Wow.
And from those songs, I was determined that I would go home and I would try to find somebody to record my songs, because I'd already been writing songs by then.
Okay.
And I wanted to bring my songs out. And after a while, I met Andrew Loog Oldham, who was the manager of the Rolling Stones.
Right.
And, he was the only one actually who saw anything in me at all. All the others were the sort of old school entrepreneurs of the, the old guard, as I called them.
Right.
And they couldn't imagine me in a sparkly ball dress, and I couldn't either. And I was, I just had an old jumper and.
Man.
But Andrew must have seen something else in me, and he gave me a Mick Jagger and Keith Richards song for my first single.
Wow.
Why does the sky turn gray every night? Sunrise again in time. Why do you think of the first love you had? Some things just stick in your mind. Why does the rain fall?
You'd think, wow, but I was really cross.
Oh, yeah. Well, you were writing your own music at that point.
I want my songs to be recorded, but I did it, and it was an amazing experience to have a huge orchestra all around me.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. And although it didn't work, it was. I have no regrets.
Well, it must have been an incredible experience. I mean, and listening to that single, and to be honest with you, some things just stick in your mind is good, but I actually like I Want to Be Alone more.
Oh, thank you.
Seem to think it means don't love you, but I do. But sometimes I want to be alone, somewhere on my own.
Thank you.
I truly do, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's just I like to, it's a little more pared down, but you still had a huge, a bunch of people recording that. You look at the credits on that, and at the time, they were studio musicians, but, I mean, you had Nicky Hopkins, Big Jim Sullivan, John McLaughlin, and Jimmy Page.
Jimmy Page, yes.
I mean,
I know. And none of them were well-known. They were session musicians.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. Well, I thought that I Want to Be Alone was better as well, because it was mine. I really enjoyed the arrangement with David Whittaker, just putting it together. It was really good. And I said on a radio show that I thought I wrote better songs than Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, but I meant for me,
right?
Not that I wrote better songs than them, but I thought, for me to sing, but I got in big trouble.
Oh, I bet.
From the management.
Oh, wow. But the amazing thing to me is that Andrew Loog Oldham also said, yeah, here's a song by Jagger and Richards, who are up and coming. I mean, they weren't the Jagger and Richards of a couple of years after that, but they were still known.
Yeah, sure. But they were already huge.
Yeah.
Yes,
but he said, you can also record your own stuff, which to me is just, especially at that time, it sounds like it was just amazing. He had so much faith in you at that time.
It was unusual.
Yeah.
Unusual for somebody to be writing their own songs, So, yeah, it was good that he let me put that on the B-side. But at that time, nobody ever took any notice of B-sides. No. And in fact, since, because I've come to know him again in these last few years, he has said that he thinks it was the better one as well. But at the time, there was no way they were going to put that out as an A-side. Right. But I think it would have worked, I really do.
I agree. I love it. I think, like I said, I think it's better than the A-side. So it's,
Thank you so much. That's really.
It's not my favorite. My Train song is just such, and that's how I found out about you, is the resurgence of the track years and years later. And it was, I didn't really hear it on commercials. I know it started a resurgence in the commercial vein, but the first time I heard it was actually, I think the second time it was a TV theme song on the show Patriot.
Oh, yes.
Which I loved that. I love that show. And it connected with the show perfectly. And it was such I'm trying to find the right word. It's such a beautifully, almost sad sounding song that is one of the very few songs that in the days of streaming, I will let the theme song play through instead of just hitting that skip intro button.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was such a haunting song. And I had to, every time the show came on, I had to hear it.
So many months and so long since I've met you. Don't even know what I'll find when I get to you. But suddenly now I know where I belong. It's many hundred miles and it won't be long. It won't be long.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you. Yeah. I know, it's amazing because that was my second single when I'd left Andrew and gone away to somebody else who was just going to let me do what I wanted. And Train Song was just a double bass and a cello and two guitars. And I thought that this is really what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was to have a simple song with simple backing into the charts, into the top 20. That was my ambition, to have something simple. But of course, it never got played at all.
Oh, that's such a crime.
And all of those years later, as you say, for Patriot and for commercials, it came into its own, which is so lovely for me, pretty much 50 years after it was recorded.
And, give me a little bit of faith in that good music will eventually find a way.
It'll find its way, yeah.
Eventually.
Eventually, yeah.
So around that time, things got really crazy for you. I mean, you ended up recording a whole bunch of music that didn't come out. You sang background on songs The Coldest Night of the Year by Twice as Much.
Out in that storm, baby, it's cold out.
You had an appearance in Tonight Let's All Make Love in London with the song Winter is Blue.
Winter is blue, living is gone. Some are just sleeping, in spring they'll go on. Our love is dead, nothing but crying. Love will not find even one more.
And like I said, you just recorded a whole bunch of music that just stayed on the shelf.
Yeah, it was a hard time because I would record something, everybody say, yeah, that's great, and then it would get shelved, and then I would record something else, and they'd say something, oh, this is the one, this is great, and I thought, right, okay, this is when it's going to happen, and my parents and my family are going to, they'll understand that actually I can do this, and then nothing would happen, and that went on for about 1.5 years, that things got made and shelved, and it was really distressing. I was very young, I guess, and I was so determined that this would work, and when it didn't, I had a hard time.
It's amazing to me that a song like I'd Like to Walk Around in Your Mind gets stuck on a shelf, because that's an amazing song.
Well, that's my favorite one, really. And it was when I really thought that I'd broken through, that this was really what I wanted to sound like. And I thought the song was good. I thought the arrangement was great.
You see the end before the beginning has ever begun. I would disturb your easy tranquility. I turn away the sad impossibility of your smile.
And then, it was Andrew, when he heard it, Andrew Olden, he said, it needs strings. And we tried, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And the way things were then, and things happened so quickly, and if it didn't work, it got put aside, and something else, a new thing would take place, and it all just happened so quickly, and suddenly there was nothing.
Yeah.
And yet that song was my big hope, and it didn't come out at all
until what, 2000, I think, when We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. But before we even get into that, then you did you just walk away for a little bit before your first album came out? You took a huge trip.
Yeah, it was a huge trip. Well, yes. I met somebody, an art student, who had the same kind of ideas as I did, but his idea was to just get out of it, get out of where we were in London. And through a series of things that happened to us, we decided, we met Donovan the singer.
Right.
And he had just bought some islands off the west of Scotland, miles away, off the very north of UK.
Okay.
And he wanted to people it with people all like him, people who were singers and musicians and painters and writers. He wanted a West Coast Renaissance, he said.
Wow.
A great idea. We're going there. And he went off in his Land Rover, and we ended up with a horse and cart. That's the only means of transport that we thought that we could afford, because horses don't need petrol. And we did actually, through the most incredible circumstances, which I describe in the book, we did find a horse and we found a cart. And we set off from London, from the south of London, over London Bridge, heading for the north. And we didn't realize how long it was going to take us to get there. But it would take two summers and a winter.
Wow.
We did get there, but then we didn't stay. But yes, along the way, I wrote songs, not ever thinking of recording them because I'd had such a bad experience with recording. But I wrote songs to keep us going in a way because it was quite hard. I
can imagine.
Britain, it rains a lot.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, so, it was quite a muddy experience in lots of ways. But when the sun shone, it was just magical. Wow. So, yeah, the songs were written in order to keep us going and to keep our spirits up and to keep the dream up, the dream of that what was going, what was ahead of us, this wonderful life that we were heading for. And halfway through the journey, I met Joe Boyd, the producer, and he liked the songs and he wanted to make an album at the end of the journey. We were only halfway through it back then, but another year later, we recorded the songs.
Okay. So this is the timeline is now making a little more sense to me then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it took a while. We recorded the songs in December 1969. It came out as an album in December 1970. In that time, musical taste, musical sense had really changed. And that little old album didn't mean anything to anybody anymore.
It's amazing.
Least of all to me, because I had a baby by then and I didn't care.
Right. But people started to care.
It took 30 years.
But
Just another diamond day, just a blade of grass, just another bale of hay, and the horses pass. La 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 la.
So the album, like you mentioned, nothing really happened with the album, and you just walked away from everything and raised a family.
Again, I walked away from it. I walked because I had been reluctant to go back into a studio and make more recordings.
Yeah.
But I did it because Joe was wonderful and he had such faith in it. And then nothing happened to it. And yes, I had this baby and I had to figure out a way of living. And it wasn't going to be through music. And I didn't pick up my guitar again. And yes, I concentrated on my kids, my animals, and my life.
So you never really ended up supporting that album, though. You never really played out and supported that. You just left.
No. Joe offered, because I was homeless at the time. I was sleeping on people's floors with my baby, and we were really not in a good way. And Joe offered to find us somewhere to live in London if I would do concerts and show and promote the album. Mm-hmm. With my wee baby, the other thing he offered us was a cottage in a row of cottages belonging to the Incredible String Band up in Scotland.
Oh, okay, because you had a couple of Robin Williamson helped out on your album. Okay.
On the album, yeah, and Joe produced the Incredible String Band,
right?
And so I had the choice of either staying in London and doing shows to promote the album, or a cottage in the countryside up in Scotland with other musicians. So I chose to go to Scotland, and I didn't promote the album, partly because I didn't like it very much.
Really? Oh, wow.
I know. I didn't feel that it was. I think because it was much folkier than I had intended it to be, because Joe brought in these folk musicians to play on it, and I had no say in that. But the songs that were arranged by Robert Kirby, who arranged Nick Drake's songs, I loved those. I thought that was the way it should have been, all of it. But with the other ones, with the banjos and the mandolins and the fiddles, I didn't like that. I was. But I've said this before, but back then the producer was God, and you didn't go, actually, I don't want a banjo on that song.
I've heard that before too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different now.
Yeah.
I think. But back then, yes, the producer had his hand on all the levers, and so I went along with it.
Well, I mean, and I don't think anybody would have expected you to do otherwise either. So,
not then, no.
So when you walked away, again, did you just drop it completely? I mean, did you? There's a 30-year gap between releases, and I mean, did you write anything? Did you play music at all? Did you have any of it in the nothing? Wow.
Nothing. I didn't even sing to my children. We had a few tapes in the car. I think there was Bob Marley and Bob Dylan.
The freewheeling Bob Dylan, sure.
An Irish band called Plankstein. That was the three that we had, and that was all my kids had to listen to when we were going around in the car, because we didn't have a player in the house. Nothing.
Wow.
And I feel really bad about that. I feel that they were, that they missed out on a lot, because I was anti-music, because I had left it completely. I didn't want it in my life at all. I didn't pick my guitar.
Wow, that is. Did your kids know about it at all?
Well, my daughter since told me that they found a tape copy, a dusty old tape copy in the back of a drawer, and they took it out to the car to play it secretly because they knew I wouldn't want them to hear it.
Oh, that's awesome. Your kids are just as rebellious as you are.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yes, I know. Yeah. And I didn't play my guitar until I was teaching my 16-year-old son to play it himself.
Oh my gosh.
I never picked it up at all.
Meanwhile, Just Another Diamond Day is attaining cult status, and you are oblivious to it.
Totally oblivious. Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, and to be honest, I was looking at it the other day. An original copy of the 1970 release is still insane. It's over $4,000.
Isn't that crazy? Well, Joe Boyd can't remember how many were actually printed to begin with.
Oh, wow.
I think maybe 300 at the very most.
Wow.
They do occasionally come up on eBay, and as you say, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I can't believe it.
One of the sites that I use for research is called Discogs, and it's a great site. And if you collect music, anybody listening, it's a great way to keep track of your collection, because you can start your own collection, and whatever you have, you can enter it and keep track of it. I use it for insurance purposes, because I have like 4,000 CDs, and if anything were to happen to this house, I mean, grand total, it's probably worth like 4,000 CDs is probably worth like $150 at this point. CDs are worthless, but I would at least have an idea of what I used to have, and I could start to rebuild. But I was looking at this the other day. I'm going to pull it up right now since we've got this here. There are 4 for sale on Discogs, starting at $1,000 and going upwards to over 4,000 for a very good. Let's see, one in very good condition, up to, and that's 4,000 US, and then there's one the 3,350 pounds.
Goodness me.
I'm not even sure what that translates to in US dollars, but
quite a lot.
Yeah. So it still has quite a bit of cult status attached to it.
Yeah, just rarity. It's just very rare. Yeah.
But so many people love it, so the demand is high. Mm-hmm. What caused the reissue in 2000? How did that come about? Did you know about it? Or were you contacted? Or
I got onto the internet in about 96, and somebody alerted me to the fact that this album was still, known about, and that people were paying silly money for it. Probably then it was about $50, but even so, that seemed like a lot to me. And yeah. There was a bootleg, a terrible bootleg that was recorded from a scratched vinyl, and I found that. Oh dear, that's just terrible. I'd better try to find out if I can actually get it onto a CD and get it really nicely made. And the songs were published by Ryco.
Okay.
Somebody at Ryco had found the old publishing contracts and got in touch with me to say, what's this? What are these songs? And I knew somebody who did have an original, and I got him to make a cassette tape for me. And I sent it to Paul Landon, and he called me and he said, I like it. And that made the ground fall away for me, because nobody in my entire life had ever said that.
Wow.
I like it. And he said, we should bring it out. We should bring it out again. And he formed a little tiny label called Spinny, and we remastered it, and it came out on CD in 2000. And I was terrified. I thought the same thing would happen again, that it would just be dismissed as nursery rhymes and songs for kids, and it's just... Quite different this time. Different generation, different understanding of different kinds of music. Yeah. And that it was a document of its time, and quite different this time.
And there's an appreciation for it, at least now.
Yes.
So it's got extra tracks on it. Since you've put all this aside, where was all where the original tapes? Where were the extra songs? Where did you find the other stuff?
My friend Jenny Lewis had Winter is Blue on an acetate demo.
Wow.
That she kept all of those years. Love Song was the other side of Train Song. And someone called Bob Stanley, who knows everything about music, found it in the BBC archives.
Oh, wow.
In your mind, somebody had found the acetate demo of that and put it onto an album called Pop Psych Obscurities.
Oh my gosh.
We got in touch with him, and he gave us permission to use the track. And the other one was a recording by my brother of a different version of one of the songs on Diamond Day. And at that time, because of what Joe had written for the sleeve notes originally, that he'd seen me singing songs at a poetry reading, we thought we'd put some of those songs on the end to sort of illustrate what he'd said. And I'm glad we did. I'm glad we put I'd Like to Walk Around in Your Mind on the CD.
Yeah.
Because that brought it to people's attention, which I really, really loved.
Yeah.
Really.
Was the response for that the impetus for doing Some Things to Stick in Your Mind? The compilation?
Oh, the compilation.
Yeah.
Now that came after my second album. I started writing songs again because of the lovely response.
Okay.
And it brought something back out in me. I could pick up my guitar and without feeling desperate. And I started writing songs again. And I made another album with Max Richter, the composer, called Look Aftering. And that was wonderful. That was great to be able to be involved in the arranging and in the recording. So different to the Andrew Oldham days or the Joe Boyd days.
Yeah.
He was the producer, but he brought me in to the decision making, which was wonderful. And then we decided to make a compilation of my old singles and demos. And at that time, I found an old tape, a 1/4-inch tape, that my brother had sent me ages ago. And my brother had passed away by this time, but I found this box of tapes he'd sent me. And one of them was my very first recording that I'd paid for when I came back from New York, when I was looking for managers and agents or whoever would take me.
Right.
Of 10 songs, just with a guitar. And we thought, oh, well, we'll make it a two CD compilation. And we kept that tape with all its, I mean, some of the songs are really awful and totally embarrassing, but we kept it all and made a compilation of all of every available bit of recording I ever did.
That is amazing. And so those tracks at the end, that's the session where you recorded like 10 or 12 songs in an hour, I think it was?
Yeah, it was.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
oh
yeah. I remember it so well. my little very, very English voice saying the titles between each song.
Yeah.
Leave me.
In fact, I think you had to repeat that one for the engineer.
Yes. Yeah.
Leave me. Leave me. When you said you would leave me, I thought that I would die. I thought I couldn't live anymore if you weren't here by my side. But now go and leave me, I don't care anymore.
So you got very busy around that time because you ended up doing work with Stephen Malkmus, Devendra Banhart, Animal Collective, which It's You is so good. I love that song.
It's lovely, isn't it? Yeah, it's such a beautiful song. And meeting them and recording with them was certainly one of the highlights of my life, because we just did a song a day. We did 3 songs and they were so incredible. They were, I thought I was going to do backing vocals, but they pushed me forward.
Oh, boy.
And I hadn't done much singing by then, but it was so great to find out I could sing. This was before I made Look Aftering. So,
okay. Yeah.
They were absolutely wonderful with me. Well, do you think you could just do this bit? Okay, are you sure?
Just encouraging you, getting you back, shaking the rust off.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
All right, so I do have a question. What does look aftering mean? Is there a meaning behind it, or is it something that just...
It was just a word that my family came up with. To look after something was to care for it, or just to take care. Okay. And then it became, are you look aftering that one, or are you look aftering that one? And and when we were aftering, it just seemed like, because Diamond Day had all been incredible, hopeful for a tremendous, dreamy future, it had all been looking forward. And Look Aftering, it was a lot about looking back. And so, or at least those songs that we haven't come up with the title yet, but when we were mastering, just listening to them all, I was thinking, well, they are about looking back. And maybe Look Aftering could have 2 meanings. It could mean looking back, and it could mean taking care of something.
That's awesome.
Actually, it was a record label that chose it. They said, yes, that's the one. And I thought, but mightn't people think it's a bit odd?
Odd sells.
Odd. Yeah, but yes, stayed.
It's a beautifully lush album. Here Before is my favorite off of that album. That's such a beautiful song.
Once I had a child, he was wilder than moonlight. He could do it all like he'd been here before. Once I had a child, if she was smiling,
Yeah, I enjoyed that one. That just came to me one night, and I was putting all the lights out, go to bed, and I picked up my guitar, and the song was there.
Oh, wow.
Just there. It was just lovely. And from having years and years and years of not having anything coming out of my head at all. It was really lovely.
And your daughter did the artwork for that and for Heartleap.
For Heartleap, yes. Yeah, she did. She's an amazing painter, and she sends me what she's been doing recently, and I see them taking place. And you know, it's wonderful when she gets to the end of it, and there it is, this beautiful painting. And well, it was Fat Cat, the label, who chose the hair for Look Aftering. Right. And with Heartleap, this beautiful white deer that she'd painted, it was on my desktop because I just loved it so much. It was there for a long time. And I was playing my guitar one day, and I just came up with the song Heartleap just by looking at that beautiful image. And she let me use it for the cover.
Well, that's very nice of her.
She's pretty good.
Yeah, I'll say so. You actually ended up performing with Look Aftering. Was there any trepidation after 35 years or so to step on the stage? Or more?
Terrifying. The first one was the Stephen Malkmus meltdown in London. He asked me to do 3 songs. Oh. The entire time. But actually, when I came to do a bit more, or when I knew I was going to have to do more, when Look Aftering was going to come out, I went to see Vetiver, the band that Devendra was in at that time. We were in Glasgow, and I went to visit them and went backstage to see them all. And I asked Devendra and Otto and all of them, how do you do this? How do you get yourself to get on the stage in front of all those people? And they all had something different to say. And Devendra said, you just do it.
Yeah.
You just do it until it doesn't matter anymore, until it doesn't mean anything anymore. And you just stop shaking and you just go on and do it. That's what I did. Gradually, I stopped shaking and enjoyed it.
Oh,
so thank you, Devendra.
That is beautiful. And I'm so glad, because I have seen some of the performances, and they're just beautifully intimate, and you tell the little stories in between some of the songs, and it's just very lovely performances. I've enjoyed watching them.
Thank you. I don't.
So,
how could I have said that?
So you've mentioned in the past that Heartleap is your last album. Are you still sticking with that?
Probably. I didn't mean it to be my last album, but when we were mastering it, Mandy Parnell, who is the most wonderful mastering engineer, and she had done Look Aftering as well, and she turned to me at the end and she said, well, for your next one, I'm going to come up to your studio and put it right. It was a mess, and it was all wrong, and everything was facing the wrong way. And I said, oh my God, after I think it was 5 days of mixing and mastering, I said, I'm never doing this again. Yeah. And Dave Howell from Fat Cat was there at the time, and so he took that as one of the things that he put into the promotion materials. This is the last album. I thought, I never said that, did I? Oh, yes, I did.
When did you start working on Heartleap? Was it pretty soon after? Because in reading the notes for it says it basically took about 10 years to write and create and get it out to people.
Yeah, there was quite a long time.
Still better than 30, though.
it's still better than 30, so I thought I was okay.
Right.
But I think what happened was that I had a lot of songs ready to record, and I had met Robert Kirby again, which was lovely, who had done the arrangements for some of the songs on Diamond Day, and he was Nick Drake's arranger. And so a lot later in life we met again, and he was going to produce and arrange the songs for me for my next album, After Look After Him. And he had some great ideas, and he'd just been recording with a brass band, and he wanted to bring the tuba along. Oh, that would be great. That's just perfect. And then I had this phone call from his wife to say that the maestro had died, and that I was so. I don't know. It was devastating, because he, not just for the music, but he was just such a lovely, lovely guy, really funny, and I don't know, just great, great guy. And his ideas were lovely. And that put me off for about 3 years. And, I was trying to work with other people, and it didn't work. And then I realized, I'll do it myself. I'll just do it myself. I'll produce it, I will arrange it, I'll do everything I can myself, and try and think in some way what he might have done. And so that's what I did.
So it's the first album really has your stamp over the entire thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Did you get the sound that you were looking for?
No.
I should have known that answer already.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I said this at the end of the book, that that even with recorded music, even if you've done it yourself, it has to go through all kinds of other processes before it reaches its audience. And those processes, I wasn't really I wasn't knowledgeable enough to know what I wanted, and it didn't come out exactly as I wanted. And so in the book I've said, maybe painting is better, because painting is immediate. Nobody comes along and says, no, that hoop is wrong, or no, that bit is wrong, or no, eyes don't do that, or clouds don't do that. It's it's much more immediate and direct to an audience, or to somebody having a look at it. And so at the end of the book, I said maybe I should have paid more attention at the Ruskin School of Drawing and so on.
Well, I love the way the album sounds. Gunpowder, Blue Shed, and Heartleap are my 3 favorites off of that.
Oh, thank you. They're
just beautiful songs. And I think you did a great job putting your stamp on the whole thing. I think it sounds wonderful.
Well, that's very nice of you. Thank you. It's good to hear. Yeah, it's, I think, I don't know, is anybody ever really satisfied with the end product of what they've done? I think you could always, with recording, you could carry on, editing. Same with writing. My goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Speaking of writing.
Yes.
When did you decide to start writing a book about this whole journey you've been on?
Well, probably when I first got a computer in 96, I decided that I would start to write the story for my children so that they could get some kind of understanding of what their parents why their lives had been slightly unusual. And so I started writing it then.
Explain that tape that they found in the back of of that cabinet.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I started doing the drawings then, and I sent off a synopsis and some copies of the drawings to various publishers and got nothing back at all, not even an answer. So I thought, oh, that's no good. Then that went into a drawer.
Wow.
And actually, every so often I would add a little bit to it, just for fun, or as I remembered things. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning of lockdown, a friend asked me what I was doing, and I couldn't say, well, nothing much. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm writing, and it was a complete lie. And he said, oh, well, I know a publisher who would be very interested in what you're writing. And that was Lee Braxton of White Rabbit. And I did send him some of it, and he he signed me up, which was great.
So you started it before your two albums, your sophomore album and your third album. So you had a whole nother chapter of life you had to...
Totally. Well, that's actually what used to happen was that, oh, I must get back to writing the story, but then something more would happen with the music, and it kept happening like that for all those years, yes. But I'm really glad that I did actually sit down to it, and I think probably lockdown was a big help. You know, I can't really say that lockdown was a help, but actually it gave me the opportunity to just concentrate, focus on getting it down and doing some more drawings and just trying to figure out how to put this story together. So yes, it took a little while.
When you look back at the book and trying to recount these stories, has your viewpoint or opinion of the people and the circumstances changed from when it happened to when you started to write about it?
Well, it depends who you mean.
Okay. Very fair point.
Yeah, I think I had to be really careful in how I portray people so as not to hurt too much. Mm-hmm. And also it had to go through the lawyers.
That is another good point.
Yeah, so I had to change some things. But I think, did it change? I think it did. I think it made me made me proud of what we'd done.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And the more I thought about it, the more I wrote about it, the more I remembered about it, it made me feel, that was quite something that we did. That journey and all of the different things that have happened in our lives,
And a lot of people loved it. You just didn't know about it.
That's right. Oh, I didn't. I really didn't. Actually, when I did start writing the story, it was 4 years before Diamond Day came out again. So, I had no idea about any of it.
That is amazing. Oh, my gosh. I loved reading the book. I love your writing style. It's so easy to read.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah. Well, my older sister, when she was working, she was an editor, and she's always been a great literary person. And I just am not. He said, "How come you've written a book when you've never ever read any?" So I think maybe, a bit like a naive painter, I think I'm a naive writer. I just put it down and I don't have to worry about grammar too much. Well, the editors had to worry about that. But,
that's what you pay them for.
Yeah, that's what you argue with them about.
Well, that's a good point. So, I've kept you for quite a while, and I want to thank you so much for all the time you spent with me. Where can people find the book and the music? And have you been writing since Heartleap?
Yeah. What songs? No, I haven't been writing any songs, but I am going to be writing. I am writing some more details of the story. Like there was a year in Ireland that we travelled with horses and wagons that I only sort of vaguely refer to in the book. But I am writing that year of Ireland in 1971 into 72, an extraordinary time with horses and wagons and dogs and chickens and stuff. It was great on the road. So I'm writing that, but whether any more songs will come, I don't know. My guitar is always by the side of me, so who knows?
Well, that's good. That's a good start, and it's still here. It hasn't been, cut up into pieces.
Not this one, no.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you didn't go Pete Townsend on stage at some point and smash up your guitar in a fit of excitement, did you?
No.
No? Okay.
Nothing quite so romantic.
What is the best avenue for people to find the book and read it?
Well, dreadfully Amazon has it, and all the music as well. But I would encourage people to try to order it through independent bookshops, and it is orderable. Barnes and Noble do have it, I think. But yes, certainly independent bookshops, local bookshops would be able to get it. And I would love it if people were to do that.
Excellent. And I know my daughter, who unfortunately I forgot to hit the record button when she was on here, she's found you independent of me, to be honest with you. So that's something. It was obviously through Spotify, because that's all she listens to. So yeah. Your music is available streaming. Oh
yes, Spotify has got most stuff. I think most of the songs. Yes, yeah, it does. And YouTube. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Some of it totally embarrassing where people have recorded shows and stuff, but on their iPhones. But yeah, it's all there in a way that I could never have dreamed of. It's
amazing. Well, it's well deserved, because the music is wonderful, and I am so happy. I watched the show Patriot so many years ago and discovered your music. It's just beautiful. Train Song is just stuck in my mind forever. Ever since the first time I heard it, it's just one of the songs I always go back to. No matter what I'm listening to, whatever music I'm listening to, I always end up going back to Train Song, and now I'd Like to Walk Around in Your Mind.
All right. Yeah.
Those two songs just really speak to me personally.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Are you available on social media? Are you interested in having people check you out on social media?
Well, I'm sort of starting to be a little bit more there on Twitter. I'm just Vashti Bunyan 1.
And I did see, I think, an Instagram profile, but only one post.
Yeah, I came off it. I don't know why. I can't remember. But I should probably get back to work on that, because it's silly not to, isn't it? It really is. It is a way. It is a way to find people, and so I should really try harder.
It is. I don't like Twitter at all, but I stay on it for the podcast. I was a photographer for years, so I like Instagram. I'm more of a visual kind of person than a concise tweeter, I guess is the right term. So Twitter and all that. Twitter is such an angry platform.
Oh, it can be.
I don't like it. Instagram is much more, I can look at the pictures and I don't have to read what you're saying.
Very good. Yeah. That's a good point. But why are you called performance anxiety?
I will tell you that was going to be the through line for all the episodes, is to talk to people about if they had performance anxiety when they started. And I just kept forgetting to ask people. We just got more conversation like this, we were just talking, and then I would have my questions written out, but I never wanted the show to sound like an interview show. I didn't want to be peppering people with, well, here's bullet point 1, here's bullet point 2. I always wanted more conversation. I that's the kind of podcast I like listening to, so that I figured out that's what I want to create. And I would just forget to look at my notes half the time and forget to ask. And so I had the name already. I had the logo made. I had the accounts made, the email. So I'm like, I'll just keep it.
That's great.
So people like the name. I'm always like, I'm kind of iffy on the name, but I've got over 300 shows now, so I got to keep it.
No, I really like it.
Thank you.
It's intriguing, and also it's an acknowledgement that there is such a thing.
Yeah. And I will be honest with you, I've gotten a lot better recently, but the very first few episodes, I was the one having performance anxiety. I was so nervous to talk to anybody. I hated my voice. I still don't like my voice, but I wanted to do this. I really enjoyed learning the behind the scenes stories. And that's why having you on was so, to me, when Howard reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in having, yeah, this is such an amazing story. I mean, you just put it all away for 30 years and then all of a sudden you're back, and it was a huge resurgence. And to me, it was just such a fascinating story. So
yeah, how lucky am I?
Well, You're extremely, you put in the work. So it's only what it is to me. It's just the world catching up to you.
Oh.
So I think you put in all that effort, and you finally getting the recognition you deserve, and the world is able to hear your talent. So I'm really thrilled.
Well, thank you. Oh, I've gone pink.
I saw 17 pink sugar elephants sitting under a chestnut tree. I said good morning, pink sugar elephants, but they wouldn't speak to me. Each had 2 eyes, but they couldn't see me there. Each had 4 legs, but they couldn't go anywhere, and so we just sat